Deep breaths, here we go. What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Tonight's show is brought to you in part by Prairie Sky Recovery Centre, Possibilities Recovery Centre, the Elizabeth Fry Society of Saskatchewan, the Community Addictions Peer Support Association, Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Mom Stop the Harm, and Carter's Counselling. Tonight's guest, Sundance Robson, is joining us to share his story of finding hope and meaning in a life that many would deem hopeless, and we are going to meet him right after this. I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work, and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knocks Talks. Okay, Mr. Sundance, here we come. Oh, no, wrong thing. I did the wrong thing.
That's
so
all right.
now we get to listen to that.
At least you did it first.
Yes. So I did the wrong thing. Now you can relax. How's it going, my friend?
Puts me at ease.
Yeah. How you doing?
Awesome. I'm doing beautiful. Yeah. I'm really happy to be on here tonight, man. And I just love the production that you have set up here. It was nice to get on this call. Like at 6:30, we've been partying since then. So it feels good, man.
Is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Well, no. You know what? There's people that I want to thank, but I don't know if that's when we start.
If it's coming over you, man, go ahead.
Hey, I want to just acknowledge the fact that I'm doing this interview in my home city on Treaty 4 land in Regina, Saskatchewan. And I want to thank the ancestors that walked this land. Before I walked this land, the ones that carried the ceremonies on this land before I walked this land, and the elders that carry the ceremonies today while I walk this land. I also want to shout out to my beautiful partner, Karen Marie, who is right now serving across the street at our studio space, doing her own thing called Wild Witch Wednesday. So we got a lot going on tonight, and it just feels good to be in studio tonight, man. And I also wanted to shout out to my niece, Rylan, who is celebrating a birthday tonight, and I'm actually doing this. So we're happy, man, and all jets go.
Here we go. So, why don't you tell us what it was like growing up?
What it was like growing up? Well, my name's Sundance Robson, and what it was like growing up was I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, in 1980, on a rainy, sort of misty morning, to a father by the name of Dennis Robert Robson and a mother by the name of Sue Bash. And we only lived there for a little while after I was born. We moved to Regina when I was about 6 months old because things were not good in Vancouver. And my mom wanted a stable life and a place to raise her child, me. My mom's family was here in Regina, and I believe that she just felt like it was a stable place for us to be out of Vancouver, and so that's what happened. We came here to Regina, and I started growing up. And you know what? The first part of my childhood was really good.
Mhm.
I felt like I had everything that a child could, and it was very enchanting. You know, um, I had lots of friends, man. It was a very it was a very community orientated home. I lived right off the back of a school by the name of St. Josephat, and um, I went through kindergarten, grade one, grade two there. But I remember the very first time I went into kindergarten in the morning, and when I walked in, I was taken to my little kindergarten box that I had all my pencils and all my utensils in there. And I remember seeing a name, a big long name written across the box that was mine. And the name was Sundance. And they tried to get me to spell the name Sundance in school. And the teacher said to my parents in an off conversation, "We think the name is going to be too hard for your son to spell. So let's call him Justin instead of Sundance."
What did your parents say to that?
Um, you know, I think that they would feel it like anyone would feel it. And, you know, um, I asked my mom about this actually just a couple years ago
Mhm.
about the name thing. And I said, "What was with the names?" And she said, "You know, me and your father had this conversation, and it was like, he's going to walk the white path and he's going to walk the red path. Whenever that happens, we don't know. But he's going to walk the white path and the red path. So we're going to give him a white name, we're going to give him a red name." And so Justin James Sundance Robson was what they gave me. And I went by Justin most of my life. And I mean, I'm not going to shy around the fact that Canada was a, systemically racist place. Throughout the 80s, it was a different territory, you know, and so that was the landscape that I was in. My father, being a residential school survivor, obviously also lived with the idea that, what if the government takes my kid?
Yeah.
You know, and to my blessing, I was, part of what I believe to be the first generation of children that didn't have to go to residential school,
Mhm.
and so that's tremendous. But I still lost my culture, and it's something that I've been finding my way back to. I've been finding my way home, you know, and so that sort of was where I think I was first introduced to an identity crisis in my life, without really being aware of it. But it does something to the security of a child when the name you already have isn't good enough, you know?
Um, your parents got divorced early on too, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So my parents, I remember we were driving home. I don't know. Actually, I was driving to school, I think, the one morning. And my mom told me, she said, "Sundance, this vacation that we're going to go on up north to Angland Lake, up in Prince Albert National Park, um, that vacation is going to be the last vacation that we go on as a family, because your father and I are getting a divorce. We're getting separated." And I think, a lot of children heard that from their parents. A lot of the friends that I had growing up heard that from their parents. And a lot of kids today hear that from their parents. And I think we all felt the same way. And that's sort of like, well, what the fuck does that mean? And that seems so strange.
Hmm.
What's a world without mom and dad in it together, right?
Yeah.
So, so that happened. And the next thing that happened was something that I didn't remember happening. I didn't remember it happening until I ended up in treatment when I was 26. So that happened. The divorce happened when I was about 7.5, 8, around there, and I had a lot of memory loss in that time. I couldn't remember what happened in my life. It was almost as though I had woken up into going through a series of shelters. When I was a kid, we went through all of the shelters in Regina, the transition house, the Isabel Johnson shelter, the Sophia house, and then the final place that we went to was my grandparents' basement, we had a room in their place until we could get housing in Regina, and but I didn't remember what happened as a kid in that period of time. I just knew that I had like a real intense sense of aggression in my life. And so I went through my teenage years, and I had my first drink in grade 6.
Was there drinking at home?
Well, there was drinking. So when I was living with my dad, now I don't remember this obviously like in the chronological way. When I looked back, when I had this experience in treatment that I'll get to, there was drinking at home when my father had custody. Yeah, for sure. There was drinking, there was drug abuse, there was sex, there was sexual abuse, there's all that shit.
So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, so your father started partying after the divorce.
Yeah. The unmanageability in his life started to kick in for sure. I think one of the things about a kid that goes to residential school is life skills and how to unravel the trauma that you've experienced in life. You know, I mean, I don't claim to know anything about being a residential school survivor. I just know what it's like to live with one. And so I know that trying to understand even how to be in a relationship with your wife, or even to be in a relationship with your kids, and to try to deal with all the shit that you have going on inside your mind and your body, when everything that you're used to is a trauma response, you're going to take it out on people. And who was close? It was us. So I'm going to fast forward to a point when I went to treatment, and then I'll come back to this point in the story, so it all sort of makes sense. So because I had memory loss when I was a kid, I didn't know what was going on. So I found myself in treatment in 2006 when I realized I couldn't do drugs and drink anymore at the rate that I was doing it, because my life was just too unmanageable. I was walking around the shop at work, and a guy came up to me and he said, "Man, it looks like you want to kill yourself. And I've seen guys that look like you that have, and I sort of was alerted by that. And I thought to myself, man, I'm just so hard into the drugs right now, and I'm super depressed in my life, and he's not wrong. So I decided to go to my first meeting. My friend invited me. He said, "Hey man, there's an AA meeting. I want to invite you to that. I think you'd enjoy it." And I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to go to an AA meeting." And so I humored him and I went. And it was at the White Row House here in Regina, downstairs in the basement. And it was back then, everybody was smoking. So I was like, that's kind of cool. Everybody's smoking and stuff. So I felt all right about it, right? And I just noticed that everybody was telling my story. And I felt connected to them in that way. But something else happened in that moment that I didn't expect. And what that was in a moment, I was no longer isolated with my thinking. I was no longer isolated with my thinking. And because of that, there was some type of liberation that occurred in my being. So I went to my boss at work and I told him, I can't quit doing drugs and I need to get help. And I'm going to meetings. I'm looking into treatment, and what it looks like is I'm going to go to treatment. And I need support. And they supported me. I went to treatment, and one of the tasks that we had when we were at Pine Lodge was to write down all the things that we thought that we were powerless over. And up until that point, that was happening. I think there was like the first week, and then halfway through the second week, I was working on my powerlessness list.
That's a lot of powerlessness.
I was sitting in, oh yeah,
That's so much.
a lot of power. So I was sitting in the auditorium at Pine Lodge, and I was listing these. I was just going through it line by line by line, and probably on 3 pages, both sides. And I had come to the end of this list. I'm powerless over relationships. I'm powerless over abuse. I'm powerless over drugs and all that sort of stuff. And I just arrived at this silence that I really hadn't experienced before. It was like I had come to the end of this list. And I just sort of sat there in silence, and I noticed sort of out of nothingness, this image arise of a child sitting on a mattress. And it was like I was looking down on this child from the corner of the room. And I got this really strange, sort of sickening feeling. And I wondered what the fuck was going on. And the next thing you know is I was sort of flooded with a bunch of pornographic images. And my father was brainwashing me to porn. My father was brainwashing me to porn because he wanted to convince me that this is why my mom had left, and that this was why she wasn't coming to get me. And that being with her wasn't safe, and that being with him was, and that he was trying to protect us. I know now why he did that. I mean, I guess I can't say for certain, but in residential school, they use tactics like that to control children. And so it's no doubt that that's the way it played out in his life when all the stuff got flipped upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt.
oh, no problem. So I ended up falling asleep, and all of a sudden I got this image again. It came right back into mind. All of a sudden I heard pounding on the door, and my father ran across the living room yelling, and I heard pounding saying, "Open the door, Dennis. We only want you. We don't want the kids." And I tried running down the hallway and trying to get out the bathroom window. I couldn't get out the bathroom window. And I remember just hearing that car just sort of boom, boom, with the glug, 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 glug of that old engine. And hearing these guys sort of talking back and forth, and the one guy saying, "Let's just leave, there's kids in the house," and all that sort of shit. And to my luck, they did leave. And shortly after that, the city police showed. They did not leave with my father. They didn't come into the house, So, I think even on the street, there's certain rules,
yeah.
And leave the fucking kids alone. So they left, and perhaps we're going to pick up at a different time. And shortly after that, the city police showed up to my father to the house, and They actually ended up arresting my father because they had had a report from social services, and they were concerned with the welfare of the kids in the home. And so at that point, he was taken into custody, and we were taken into the custody of social services. Just before he was going to get me to plant coke on my mom. He wanted me to plant coke on my mom. He was going to let my mom come get us. But I was going to take a ball of coke, put it in her purse. He was going to call the police. She's come pick up my kids. I think she's on drugs. They'd pull her over. They'd search the car. They'd find the coke. So there was a lot of shit that sort of went on there in my childhood. And I could tell you more and more and more. I don't know how necessary that is at this point. So that was what happened.
How was school?
Well, I had lots of friends that I really liked, but I was awful at school. I was given the diagnosis of ADD and dyslexia at a very early age. And so the name of the game was to live into that identity for the rest of my life until I figured out that I only have ADD and dyslexia when it comes to doing stuff that I actually hate.
You hate doing, yeah, I get that too.
Yeah.
Still.
So, but I was on Ritalin and Dextrin at various points in time throughout my education, and that sort of aided my ability to be able to step into stimulants.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, I think that for me, one of the things that I hear in readings is that when we found drugs, we thought we found something. There was that was the first initial relationship. And for me, I think one of the things that I noticed about my story after talking to you for the first time is that it's a very isolated thing with me, myself, and I in my mind, mm-hmm. and addiction. And when I had the stimulant, it was very easy for me to isolate myself.
How old were you the first time you got loaded?
Well, the first time I got loaded, I was in grade 6. So I would have been 11.
Mm-hmm. How was it?
Well, I think the first 3 beer were fun, and I think the last 3 beer were shit.
Okay. Were you all in after that? Because I like everybody that watches the show knows, like, the first time I got loaded, I made a mess of myself and I was all in. I loved it. So, like, how was that for you?
Yeah, I you know what? I think I felt like I found something for sure.
Home.
Yeah, it was. I think I just wanted more of all of it.
Mm-hmm. So how was you were like drinking at school and at lunch hour and stuff too, weren't you?
Yeah, we would go and have shots of vodka at lunch,
mm-hmm.
From time to time, try to smoke a cigarette. We had to get used to what we were about to do for the next, 20 years of our life. And that just seemed like the right thing to do. And looking back on that, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane because, when I think that something's coming up in my life, and it makes sense that if something's coming up in my life, I got to get loaded.
Yeah.
That's actually insane.
Oh yeah. I remember thinking I needed to get loaded to go see the social workers.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, it was really interesting. So, hey, we got the lunch hour. What do we do with the lunch hour?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, let's get loaded.
Mm-hmm. How were your teenage years?
Just a lot of binging, a lot of binge drinking, on the weekends, parties, binge drinking, sometimes during the weekdays, partying, binging. I didn't really take my academic line in my vocation in school too seriously. I went to Tom for 1 year. Then I ended up leaving from Tom and going to Riffle. And I arrived at Riffle in grade 10, and I was there for about 5 years, and I left in grade 10. I think the only thing that I had in grade 12 was drama or music. So school really, for me, it was more of a platform to party.
Yeah. Did you graduate?
No, I dropped out. And then I went back and got my GED a couple years later.
So what did you do after high school?
I went right into the workforce. Actually, I went into retail and started doing sales. I tried to do sales, and whatever would be fitting for me to get income to get loaded, right? I mean, I need a check to get torqued. That's what I need. I need a check to get loaded, and you know, then my father died when I was 19.
How did he die?
So my father ended up dying of a heroin overdose. And I didn't know that he was addicted to heroin. Mm-hmm. The story came out later. I remember just pulling up in the driveway one day, and my brother walked out of the driveway, and he just said, "Justin, Dad died," you know? And I just remember being like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, that just hit me. It was really intense how that hit me. And then that was really when I noticed, like, I don't know how to love. Mm-hmm. There's this thing about, like, being able to love someone when there's a death, or being able to love someone when something comes up. And I knew that, like, my brother has always been such a amazing being of love, you know? And it seems like love just sort of comes from him naturally, you know? And I also see the way that he is with his daughters and his wife. And he, like, when I talk to him, I know that deep inside of him, there's just this immense, deep love. And it was very hard for me to connect with my mom in a place of love, or my brother in a place of love, because I had spent all my time being a tyrant.
So there was, after your father passed, you spent about 6 years in isolation and darkness. What snapped you out of that?
Can I get you just to repeat the question, Daniel? It broke up just a bit.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so after your father passed, you spent a long time in isolation, about 6 years, correct?
After my father passed away, I spent time in isolation.
Yes. What snapped you out of that?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, it's the stream just dragging a bit. But so I really, you know, what snapped me out of that was realizing that I had partied it all away, and I didn't have any more money left, and I'd exhausted all my resources, and it looked like I didn't have any more options. Mm-hmm. You know, and that was when I found myself going to my first meeting, and then eventually checking myself into treatment.
So what did you hear at that meeting?
Pardon me?
Oh, are we having trouble?
I'm getting a little bit of a drag, but
so at this meeting,
if you just repeat your question, I'll be able to.
You heard someone tell your story at this meeting, correct? What was that like for you?
Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah. So it was really good, because I remember there being times when I would just sit in my basement and wonder about the shit that was going on inside of my head, and I would think, man, I'm insane. if people knew what was going on inside of my head, they'd put me in an asylum. And when I went to these meetings, I saw when people shared that story, I realized, oh my God, like insane thinking is relative to the addictive mindset, and so I was no longer alone in all that. And it's really interesting was that the very thing that pulled me deeper into isolation with my own insanity ended up being the very thing that put me in a place that I was visible now and able to be seen.
Mm-hmm. So did you keep going to meetings?
I did keep going to meetings. I still go to meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't stopped going to meetings. I haven't got a regiment though, and I haven't got a sponsor.
Oh,
yeah, I know. It's time. It's time to get the strap. So,
yeah.
but it's been my relationship with recovery meetings has been my relationship to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I really found myself when I went to meetings, for the first probably 6 years, it was really hard to stay clean.
Because
I didn't see any. Did I stay clean for the first 6 years? No. What I would do was I would just come in, once every 2 weeks and get a newcomer key tag, or I would come back for my, 30 days, 2 weeks, a day, 90 days, go back out. It was just a lot of flip-flopping back and forth. So I went to treatment. It was, a really interesting story is when I was in treatment, Susan Ulmer, my group leader and also the director at the time, came into the auditorium and said, "There's a lot of shit going on in the house. And it's going to lead to you guys going back out and using. And that's sad." And I remember thinking, wow, she's really coming in here and laying down the law to everybody else in the auditorium but me. I can't believe that Susan Ulmer would come into the auditorium and show me how she lays down the law to everybody else. Like I actually thought that for real, man. She was talking to everybody.
Taking notes and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Like, yeah, she's showing me how to be a drug counselor,
yeah.
Obviously.
God bless her.
So, yeah, apparently she was talking to me because I ended up going back out and using. I didn't stay clean, right? And in fact, I didn't end up actually nailing my first year until I got clean in November 24th, 2012. Off of everything.
So, how was it, like, in the times you weren't using? Did you have trouble, like, finding things to do with yourself, finding ways to interact with people? Tell us about what that struggle was like for you.
So when I first got clean, what did I do?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it wasn't until I found service. So I thought, like looking back on that, I really didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Because there was going to meetings during the weekdays, which seemed to be sort of like standard issue. I was always trying to do 90 and 90, mm-hmm. And whether I would do that or not, I think is almost irrelevant. But I would also struggle with more. So even going to a meeting and then going out for coffee after, well, then that wasn't enough. I needed to do more after that, right? And if I couldn't do more, then I would feel frustrated by that. And it was very hard for me to nail down any type of balance in my life. My sleeping patterns were totally messed up. And not to mention, I was also working night shifts, flipping back and forth between night shift and day shift and night shift and day shift. So I couldn't get any sort of routine settled. And so I just found it really difficult. I didn't really adopt service as I did when I when I really decided, okay, I need to get clean in 2012. When I said that, that was when I knew that like I got to step into service, because I'm gonna find a way to stay clean. If I'm working with people and if I'm spending my time with people in service, I think I have a chance at this. I had been around service, you know, and experienced service on just like a small scale, and I think I saw enough of it to realize that, yeah, you know what, if I am like clearly at the end of my using now. And I'm like destitute, you know, that last use, because like I said, I danced back and forth between like doing meetings and sort of living what I felt was like a very mundane and boring life, to being just like, oh, I'm just going to do drugs now. And that last time, that pain that I would always feel before I would do the drug, you know, up until then, it always went away whenever I would do the drug. But then the last time I did it, you know, I had my last line and it didn't go away. From the very first time that I started on Thursday night, all the way until Monday morning, you know, I sat in my condo going crazy trying to make the pain go away, and it fucking just sat, man.
How much did you go through?
I went through a quarter of blow that night, or over those, I think, 3.5-4 days. And I remember I just hit the ground, you know, after that last use, and I just was like, oh my God, you know, I couldn't believe how much pain I was feeling. I wanted it to go away so bad. But that was the same moment that I had a spiritual awakening too. You know, and people will come into the rooms, or people will come into recovery, and they'll wonder, you know, I've heard people say, well, you know, at some point I think I'll have a spiritual awakening. Well, if you're here, you've probably already had one on a small scale. You know, like you gotta, I think there's gotta be some type of incremental spiritual awakening to occur for you to be sitting in this fucking room, you know?
What did you think about, you did your last line, you hit the ground. Did your thoughts turn to death? Like, what was that thought? Was it like a light switch? Like, this has to change, or what was it?
Before I had my last line, I remember just being so racy and so high, and thinking to myself, I wonder what's going to happen if I hit this, you know? And I stayed alive.
I'm gonna take a quick break.
And when I
didn't quite nail the turning point there, sorry.
That's all right, man. We turned.
We did. So, you didn't die. Here we are.
That's right.
What happened after that?
I knew that if I went to meetings, I stood a chance, and I knew what to do. I did know what to do. I knew, go to a meeting tomorrow. Go to a meeting tomorrow. Get into service tomorrow. Like, and if it would have been that day, I mean, it was early in the morning. I need to get my shit sorted out, you know? So, but if you can do it today, do it today. Right? Don't do it tomorrow. Do it today. I just had to wait till tomorrow that day.
You said when we were talking the other day that you struggled with how you would address how people felt about you. That was really interesting to me. You didn't know how to feel or how to respond to how people felt about you.
Wow, that's a real paradox. I actually said that.
You said that, yeah. And I was blown away. I was thinking probably what you're feeling right now. Like, wow, that's profound. Basically what it is you didn't know how to communicate. So how did you get through that first while of your sobriety? Like, how did you learn to deal with the people around you and how they treated you and how you thought they felt about you.
Yeah, you know what? I just showed up, but I would also hide. And I also saw my behavior really coming out. So if there was like a function or dance in recovery, I remember just like looking through gymnasium doors and being like, oh, they're dancing in there. And then being like, kind of like freaked out by it. And then I would go straight to the bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just want to hang out in the bathrooms, just like I did at the club, just like I did at a party. I just like, where's the bathrooms? That's where I'll be. I'm going to go hang out in the bathrooms. Right.
Did you ever pound pop?
And oh yeah, man. I think, I just stopped drinking Red Bull, like 2 years ago, really, but I smashed energy drinks and I was smoking cigarettes and all that stuff,
Did you stay clean?
Sure. Did I stay clean?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first came to recovery, I stayed, from 2013, November 24th, 2012, I stayed clean. And I stayed clean for a couple of years. And then I went through a series of relationships and then I went back out.
Mm-hmm. I
did. And you know what? Those were the most powerful ways for me, I would have to say, to learn about life. And one of this is so interesting because they say in recovery, don't get into a relationship in your first year.
Mm.
Well, that's exactly what I did. And I'm going to say something is maybe a little controversial, but why not on Hard Knocks Talks?
Give her.
Learning about relationships in life is crucial. And you're going to learn about relationships in life at one point or another. Do what you feel is right for you on your path. Now, for me, I got into relationships because I wanted to get into relationships. I never really had relationships growing up when I was younger. And being able to experience relationships in life with a woman was, for me, was very profound. And I didn't realize the work that is involved in being in a relationship with someone. And there is a tremendous healing process that happens in that, whether you totally fuck up the relationship and make amends about it later on, find a way to stay clean through all of it. Relationships have become my biggest strength in my life. And in the beginning of my recovery, relationships were my Achilles heel. They were my greatest weakness. And today, relationships have become my greatest strength. And when someone asks you to be their sponsor, or when someone wants to be a part of your life, staying in integrity in that relationship is a healing journey in itself. There's a recovery in just being in relationship with people. Like, I've got to have a certain amount of recovery to even come on this show in my life because it involves being in relationship with you. And I think that we learn in a profound way through relationships.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you did end up going back out. How long did that last?
Well, it was always off and on, I stopped sniffing. The last time I ever sniffed cocaine was in November 24th, 2012. That was the last time I ever did cocaine. But I would go back and drink. I would smoke dope, pot, and I wobbled back and forth. And I haven't had a drink for over a year now. And I stopped. I decided to stop smoking pot back in September.
So tell us a little bit about that. Was that a thought process? Was that a challenge for you, or did something change in the way that you saw the world? How did that happen?
I think, like, I never really came to recovery to stop smoking pot. That's not why I came to recovery. I came because I couldn't stop sniffing cocaine. But what I found out was that it was a way to pacify. And like my addiction would always come and go in bursts. So pot would be around for, a couple of months, and I'd smoke the shit out of it until I was just like, well, I'm just not even stoned anymore. And I would stop. I would take like a tolerance break, for a couple of months and smoke more pot. And they came out with, when pot became legal in Canada, I remember I went and bought a pen. They got these fucking pens. And and for me, like I was just thinking, I'll just have a little bit, right? And the next thing you know, it's just like I need the maximum. I need the maximum potency that you guys got, right? I don't need the little stuff anymore. I need maximum. And I was working on a paper, and I was studying some of the Stoics from ancient Greece. And I was writing a paper, and every now and then I would have a blast on my pen and put it back in my desk and keep writing and preparing my worksheet and all this sort of stuff. And I honestly, I thought that in a lot of ways that it actually helped with my ADD. So they would say, right? I had no interest in doing Ritalin or anything like that, but I don't know, I found that there was a sense of focus in that. And, but I remember just looking out the window, and I remember just being so stoned and thinking, man, I think I'm missing the point, And I realized that what my life was calling me to do was to just show up stronger in this area, and that life was calling me to be aware. Life was calling my presence and awareness. Life was not calling to my passivity. And that if I wanted to work with people that whose job description requires them to be present and have a high level of awareness, that the person I need to be is a person with a high level of awareness and a high level of presence. And I began to live into that reality. And that goes hand in hand with the work that I do today.
So tell us a little bit about what your days look like now.
Well, my mornings are gold to me.
Mine too.
I just like my highest cognition tends to happen between 5:30 in the morning and 11 a.m. So I wake up, and there's something that I'm always meditating on, or there's a word that I'm always reading. Right now I'm going through a book called The Way of Mastery. So I'll just sit and meditate on a quote for a while, and then I'll start writing on it myself, and then I'll hit up the people that are in my life with those quotes, with my work, and I'll share insights with them, and and ultimately within all of that, that's how I create clients in my life too. Because there's people out there that want to do a really deep work on themselves in the same way. And go ahead.
So what is it you do exactly?
So I'm a professional coach. I'm also a ceremonial facilitator. So we do cacao ceremonies, we do gong ceremonies, we do meditation baths, and we work with large groups. In fact, we have on Sunday, we call it something like church. It's not church, but we call it something like church. It doesn't, whatever it's not, I'm not talking about my God, I'm talking about your God. And Just because I'm talking about my God, don't look at it that way. Look at it as me talking about your God, right? And I'm not, we all have our own belief in a higher power. And that's something that I really clued into with my recovery, was just like, what you believe in is what you believe in. Just be committed to believing in that. Be committed to believing in that. If that's what you believe, then be 100% committed to that. Your life will change. If you're committed to that belief, things are going to change for you. And so we use the gongs and conversation to integrate and help bring space and silence into people's lives. Mental health, that's something that you talk about on your credits, and this is where we stand. We stand in the midst of a mental health crisis in some ways. I just read something in the paper that says the Canadian government is looking at making assisted suicide for people that are depressed and or bipolar something that's legitimate. Now, I'm not here to make an opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I do. I'm not an opinionist or a columnist. I'm also not a doctor or physician. I don't know anything about that. I only know about my own experience. One thing I can tell you is that I was suicidal at points in my life. I remember sitting in front of a child psychologist when I was 11 and a half years old because I was suicidal. But I know that there's a space inside of me that is not suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people that we have the opportunity to spend time with, the more people that we have the opportunity to be with in this capacity, the more lives will be saved. And it's just like, it's all about, and reach is something, being visible is something that's really important in doing this type of work, and go ahead, Daniel. I see Melissa Hoffman.
Oh no, we just throw those comments up there. We don't have to read every one of them out, but we can. So Melissa.
yeah, and thank you for that comment, because for me, I want to be able to facilitate in the best capacity that I possibly can. And this is what I mean. Like, we don't know how much life we have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we made it out of all that shit, man. We made it out of that. And now we have like a serious opportunity, and we're sitting here talking about this. I'm sitting on Hard Knocks Talks talking about mental health recovery to you, because this is us going to any lengths. We would have went this far for drugs, no doubt, man. No doubt. Easily. If this is how I would have got drugs, and this is, man, if I got to do this is what I would have done. And for mental health and for well-being, and to carry the message in a different way, but in sort of the same way, this is what I got to do. So when you asked me to come on here, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I got to go on the show, because it's like live, it's a live stream. Sometimes I'm judgy. I'm all this sort of stuff. Like, the personality of Sundance will show up. Then what the fuck are we going to do? Right. And
you're going to talk to that guy.
Yeah. How do we hit rewind on a live stream?
You don't, my friend. You do not.
So there's that whole aspect of it. But I love doing this, man, because I'm willing to go for it. I'm willing to go to any lengths to help carry the message to the people that need to hear the message. I don't know how else to get it there. I could play my drum, and we're going to do that at the end, which is, I'm really happy about that. I could do that in a room by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I could sit here and talk about this by myself.
Yeah.
But we experience life through relationship with other people. And when we interact and we have these relationships with people, this is where we heal. This is where we come to find out who we really are.
Yeah. Well, my friend, I think that's all the questions I've got for you. The comments are dying down. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with tonight?
Hey, man, I just want to thank you for putting on the show, and thank everyone for listening. If you want to get a hold of myself, you can find me on Facebook at Sundance Robson. You can find me on Instagram at Sundance Robson. And you can also find our business, Sacred Compass Journey, on Facebook. And you can just inbox us or message us any way whatsoever. We're also on a website at sacredcompasshealing.com.
All right, my friend, I will let you go. Take care. There is power in numbers. If you would like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that we can recover. There is a safer way, and we're here to show you how. Good night.
Hey ya, 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 ya, hey ya, ya, hey 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 ya. Ya hey ya, ya hey ya, hua hey ya, hey ya, hua hey ya, hey ya, ya hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hua hey ya, ya hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hua hey ya, hua hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya hey ya, hua hey, ya hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hua hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hua hey ya, ya hey ya, ya hey ya, hua hey, ya hey ya, ya hey ya, hua hey ya. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya hey ya, hua hey, ya hey ya, hua, ya hey ya, ya hey ya, hey ya, hua hey ya, hua hey, ya hey ya, ya hey ya, hua hey, ya hey ya, hua hey, ya hey ya, hua hey. Hey ya, hey ya, hua, hey ya, hey ya, ya hey ya, hua, hey ya, hey ya, hua, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hua, ya hey ya, hua, hey, ya hey ya, hua, hey, ya hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hua, hey, ya hey ya, ya hey ya, hua.